I am a driver. I drove for 4 years from McKinney to Freetown. All these 4 years I spent driving, I never heard of Ebola. Ebola never came into our country.
In January, I was looking for ambulance drivers, and someone told me about this guy. So he was a driver, and he gave a ride to somebody who was clearly sick.
So he took the woman in the front seat. They are going to Freetown. On their way to Freetown, the old woman get vomit on the floor. Mohammed decided to park the vehicle and decided to wipe the vomit.
Mohammed, he's meticulous. So I could see him doing this. He's keeping, his vehicle is meticulous. Every day it's spotless. Of course he's gonna clean up. Somebody throws up in his vehicle, he's gonna clean it up.
After that, I went to buy food. I started feeling a headache and like I had a fever.
And he said, Mama, I knew right away that I had the sickness. And so I did not touch anybody. I set myself apart and I took myself to the center and I made them start to treat me.
He went to an Ebola holding center in McKinney and we tested positive and was then transferred down to Kinnaman, which is a very, very, very far journey.
The ETCUs were far away from the village and people were petrified because to die alone is far worse than to die. And so many people knew that if you got in an ambulance like Mohammed, your chances were 95% you were not coming back.
After we left Matatuka, that's when the first person died inside the ambulance. We tried to stop the ambulance, but the driver, he wouldn't stop. As we drove through Matatuka, the woman who was sitting beside me, she also died.
Roads are horrible and you went in these cramped ambulances or death traps for a long ways over a horrible road and people died. I mean, they shut the windows and locked them in these and they went and it's 110 degrees and there's no air moving in these and you're sick, you have a fever of 40 and you're vomiting and diarrhea. People are gonna die.
The road was so bumpy. Whenever we hit a bump, all of us would fly into the air and then come back down. That's when I started to cry. It was midnight and I couldn't stop crying. I was sure this was the end of my life and I'd never see my kids again. All the other people were dead and we still hadn't gotten to where we were going.
And Mohammed was the survivor. And he said, I had to survive this because I had to take care of my children. He was so happy to work with us and be able to work with survivors, to work with discharged patients, and he accepts and embraces that he is protected because he survived. And because he survived, that he wants to use that for good. And so he is one of the most compassionate and caring guys, and he does all the discharges and all the psychosocial people that we work with that arrange rides. They all want Mohammed to drive for them because he is so good with survivors and with, as we call them, negatives, taking them home. And they spend a lot of time talking to them, preparing them for reinsertion back into the community. And Mohammed is one of the best people to do it because he understands.
Whenever I am down, Lord, I give you the praise. Thank you, Jesus. Whenever I am down, Lord, I give you the praise. When you are crying, Lord, perishing. Whenever you live, Lord, I live by the day. Thank you, my Lord.